As a nation, Australia will heave a collective sigh of relief. A victory by just a slender margin of 4 runs. One boundary anywhere during those 20 overs could have seen Afghanistan home. At the end, a brilliant effort from Rashid Khan, falling too short of his maiden T20I half-century. Naturally, this was his highest score in T20I cricket. 48 of just 23. There would have been plenty of flutters in that Australian dressing room. As it is, they were way past the 106 they needed to get Afghanistan down to. And the fact that it's got so close means that only a Sri Lankan win, or of course a washout, could see Australia through. We'll save that for the moment. Let's just celebrate Afghanistan on Cricbuzz Live, joined by Joy Bhattacharjya and Michael Vaughan. At no stage were Afghanistan even entertaining the talks of 106. They were like, how are we winning this game? And they almost did.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's always a joy when Afghanistan play with the crowd, the atmosphere. We spoke about that earlier, but they've got some wonderful cricketers. Australia tried. They tried to get those wickets. They knew what they had to do. There wasn't a great deal of swing. It's amazing that they didn't play Mitchell Starc. You know, the left arm, all right, he's not been doing that well of late, but he has got the ability to get 3 or 4 quick wickets if he gets it right. But Afghanistan's batting and Rashid Khan, what a cricketer he is. I mean, I watch him bat and I see him bat so low down in all these T20 leagues and in this Afghanistan's team. Can they get him up the order somewhat? Can they almost throw him out there at number 5 and say, just play like you're doing? You know, you just go out there and try and hit the boundaries, hit the sixes, and if you come off for 20 balls, great. But a brilliant game, great atmosphere. Australia now, they'll be supporting Sri Lanka tomorrow in Chris Silverwood's team, so it's all to play for tomorrow.
Yeah, that was always going to be the equation. The moment it was past 106, it was just like, go Sri Lanka, and which is not an unrealistic expectation. They're not exactly a minnow nation, so that's the only way they can get through now.
In fact, I was looking at the stage, I was just going back and looking at the overs, and at the end of the 13, they are 98 for 2. 98 for 2 in 13 overs, chasing 165 odd is not a bad shout at all. In that over, the 3 wickets fall. I mean, there's 1 run out, Zampa gets 2 wickets. Next over, he goes for only 3 runs, and Hazelwood comes in, and he gets another wicket. He gets Nabi out, and that's when the collapse happens.
The 34 for 4 segment is where it all changed.
Where it all changed. Had it not been there, this could have been a cruise for, I mean, that basically those 4 wickets was what broke the back of the Afghan. And then, of course, Rashid Khan played brilliantly in the end with Rasuli and got it back again. But they were cruising at one point. 98 for 2 in 13. They were looking well set to do this easy.
In fact, when we were talking on Cricbuzz Combox, I did mention that someone like a Najibullah Zadran would be key to this when he does come in, and of course supported by someone like Rashid. But Najibullah just played a shot that he'd want to forget himself.
Yeah, they'd all... And that's what, there was just that 1.5 overs of brain fade. Otherwise, and just to think after that brain fade, they were just 5 short. And that tells you the kind of innings one Rashid Khan has played. Secondly, what I loved about it was everyone thought this was incredibly improbable. But look at the way Rashid Khan played. He was angry with himself when he missed a shot. It's not that, oh, well, I've hit a ball for 6, what a great thing. He wanted to win the game all by himself. And I think that's so amazing, the kind of spirit he brings to the game, the kind of joie de vivre that he brings to it. It's just amazing.
Michael, let's just celebrate Afghanistan for a moment. Netherlands finished on a high with a win. Afghanistan couldn't finish with the 2 points, but given the fact that they had 2 washouts, they've certainly walked away from Australia with their heads held well high.
Yeah, and they always do. They play a great brand of cricket. They've got great skill levels with the ball. They've got those spinners who had an okay night, but it was the seamers tonight that bowled beautifully. Great variations. And with the batting, I just sit back and smile when they bat because they just give it a good old go. If it's in their slot, it's going to be tried to be whacked out the park. You look at those 2 rained-off games, particularly the game against Ireland. They'd have fancied beating Ireland, so it's wrong of us really. So they're the only team that's not won a game when you've had 2 games washed out. But they're a really good side to watch. I hope they can keep the side together. I'm sure they're going to get better and better, and to push Australia in their in their own backyard this evening with a huge amount of support. The atmosphere that the Afghanistan supporters created was absolutely fantastic. So. Yeah, they always bring a smile to my face, Afghanistan, when they play cricket. They play it the right way.
Any boxes you think they need to tick going forward? Because there will be a bit of introspection. There will be a bit of celebration as well.
Look, again, I mean, they still are looking for couple of more quality batsmen up front. I mean, I really like Zazai, and Zazai was not here right now. But I like the kind of image. Gurbaz is giving them those kind of starts. The two Zadzans are there. A couple of more batsmen perhaps. Or if Rasuli comes in and starts having a long. The other thing is I do not understand why they don't play Naveen-ul Haq. He was just an outstanding performer today in the field with the ball. He was absolutely
Can bat a bit, I can tell you that.
He can bat a bit as well. And I just fail to understand why he and Fazal Haq Farooqi immediately give you so many more options up front.
Yep, but for Australia, it's not yet introspection time. They'll want to sit there. They'll want to pack in the Sydney cricket ground. They'll all have different sort of flags on. They'll have Sri Lankan flags on, and they'll really be getting behind them because they'll have to find a way. Just to have a look at Sri Lanka now officially eliminated as far as the points are concerned, but they still have a big role to play for the host nation. They've been good hosts as a nation, and Sri Lanka will have to repay it with a win. If they can beat England, that is the one way Australia qualify. And of course, if the weather plays a part, haven't checked the latest Sydney weather. I'm sure Michael's keeping an eye on it. But yes, if it's...
don't worry, it's dry. I've seen it. It's sunny. I've checked.
Well done. I knew you would be on that.
Of course he's checked.
Yeah, we wouldn't want a result like that. I mean, if they lose fair and square to Sri Lanka, it's fine. But nobody, even a neutral, wouldn't want a situation where it's a must-win game and the weather intervenes and they don't give them the 2 deserved points, Michael.
No, absolutely. We just want a good game of cricket. England found a bit of form in the last game. They found their kind of aggressive nature with the batting hand, which has been lacking in this tournament. England are heavy favourites, but the Sri Lankan side on the back of a nice win in the last game. Those spinners, if they get a wicket that starts to spin for Sri Lanka, they're going to be a big, big threat. But generally over the last, since 2015 in white ball cricket, when England have desperately needed to win a game, they've been pretty good at winning that game. The semi-final last year against New Zealand was the death ball in that they struggled with. They found out a nice rhythm and a nice tactic or two with their death bowling so far in this tournament. So that's not as big a concern as it once was. I would expect England to win, but it's this Chris Silverwood, the ex-England coach, ex-England player, up against his old side that obviously he was sacked from not too long ago in Australia, just a few months ago, really. So that's kind of the big talking point over here over the next 24 hours will be Chris Silverwood versus England, the Asia Cup champions. Can he damage a lot of England supporters' hearts over the next 24 hours? And, good luck to him. He's done well. I really admire the fact that he's gone and coached in Sri Lanka. He hasn't taken any backroom team with him. He hasn't taken 2 or 3 from England with him. He's just gone and got stuck in, and he's done a really good job. So, may the best team win. That's what I'll say.
Yeah, but from Sri Lanka's point of view, I know Michael said that England found a bit of form. Jos Buttler particularly, they were looking to him to get some runs. But from Sri Lanka's perspective, they too, now that they've got the E next to their name, they'll know that, like with the Netherlands, like with Afghanistan, they'll want to finish on a high to sort of almost for their spectators, for themselves, for their pride. And they'll also know that a win can do something in the tournament.
Yeah, Sri Lanka's at a very interesting stage in the evolution of teams. What happens before you settle down as a team is you're like up and down. And if you see the Asia Cup, that was exactly what happened. They lost by 100 runs in their odd runs in their first match, smashed by Afghanistan, then come back and win it. So there'll be days where they look very ordinary and you wonder what the fuss is all about. And there are days where they just play fantastic cricket. And they have that kind of firepower, especially in their batting, to really scare teams. If the Rights of Rajapaksa get going, they can damage teams. They have the ability to hit the ball very hard. They have a couple of interesting spinners. Hasranga, I think, is an outstanding bowler. Thikshana is good. If they get something from the top, from their fast bowlers, this could be a very good team. They could upset any team on any day. And the Australians will be telling them, please forget Daryl Hare. Just remember, we gave you 2 great coaches. We gave you Dave Watmore. We gave you Tom Moody. Both of them coached you to World Cup wins, World Cup finals. Just remember that.
Yeah, but it's a record that they'll want to put straight. And at least Australia will be hoping it's the other Sri Lanka that turns up. Because other than the Asia Cup, as Joyce was mentioning, they've lost every possible series. They didn't start this tournament on a great note. The opening match, remember, they had to come through the qualifiers. They lost to Namibia. Suddenly you were saying, are Sri Lanka going out of the tournament? While West Indies on the other side had lost to Scotland. Are we going to lose both Sri Lanka and the West Indies? They came back well. And they've managed to get into the tournament. Now they need to finish on a high and sort of replicate what happened at the end of the Asia Cup, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're a dangerous team. They've got players that, in T20 cricket, I think you only need 3 or 4 players to rock up and have a really good day out, and you can beat anybody. Sorry. And when you look at, Thiksani, you've got, in my opinion, the best leg spinner in the world with Rashid Khan in Wanindu Hasaranga. If those two bowl well and put England under a huge amount of pressure, then you've got, Dhananjaya Silva, he found form in the last game. Mendes at the top plays a little bit more of a conventional role, but he can play the glue innings, which allows all the firecrackers to come out and fly. I think Sri Lanka's best way of winning is batting first. Bat first, get a number on the board, even if it's 150. You're then dangling the carrot to England. I think that's the way to beat England at the minute. They seem to be a better side, and that's kind of been a transitional thing for England over the last few months, where they used to be a chasing side, now they're a defending side because their bowling has become very consistent towards the back end with the likes of Sam Curran, Mark Wood. So I think Sri Lanka's way of winning is to get a number on the board and then throw the ball to the spinners and say, what have you got, England? Can you chase 150, 160 down under the lights in Sydney to try and get into the semi-finals of the World Cup? And if Sri Lanka do win in, they finished third in that group on the back of winning the Asia Cup, and they finished higher than England. I think that's success. I think they'll say they've had a decent tournament. All right, they're not in the semis, but I think it's another step in the right direction for Sri Lankan cricket. So it's a big, big game for them as well.
Yeah, and I reckon from England's point of view, it's going to be one of them. We've said so far in the tournament, one of the things we've liked about this tournament is that the toss doesn't really decide the outcome of the game. But I have a feeling in tomorrow's game, it's going to be the team that wins the toss will really want to bat first. Sri Lanka, just because they feel that's the best way they can win, and England, because that is probably the safer of the two options in a sense, especially with what we've seen in Sydney so far.
No, absolutely. I think they're looking at, and Joss Butler, from the time that he's taken over, this batting first has been something that they've been looking at as a team. And yes, it's primarily also because of the fact that they have this batting order is a brilliant batting order, but it's not as set a batting order as it used to be. Remember, you're missing for what the likes of Johnny Bairstow, you're missing the likes of Jason Roy. So this is slightly, all these players are just as talented, but I think where England has really improved is the death bowling. With Sam Curran is giving them, Mark Wood, Sam Curran is giving them a lot. They have on occasion used Adil Rashid as a death as well, very effectively. So I think they know they can control the innings. All they need to do now is just put that total 150, 160, 165 odd. And I think they'll really back themselves to hold Sri Lanka to that.
Michael, before the last game, you very sternly advocated that the Malan-Stokes 3 and 4 would not work. England listened and they changed things around. Pretty much everyone was padded up and they went with that. A, do you reckon they'll go with that again? And B, your players to watch out for that fixture?
Oh, I think they start with the batting lineup being with Malan at 3 and Stokes at 4. But, if they get off to a good start, it always manoeuvres, particularly if they're batting first. Malan gets pushed down and all the firecrackers get pushed up. I don't like seeing Malan and Stokes, even if they're batting first and they lose a couple of early wickets. I don't like that combination together. I think that needs to be broken up with a right-hander in there. We saw Moeen Ali move up the order in the last game against New Zealand. It didn't work, but I liked it. I like that kind of positivity of sending Moeen out there to strike. England have got so much power, so much difference. When you've got Liam Livingstone down there, Harry Brook, he hasn't fired, but he's a really good player. Right-handers, you've got enough there that can make sure that you've got left-hand, right-hand combinations, or sending out the right player to face the bowler at that time, which is the matchup which could take you away from the opposition. So England have got plenty of options. The batting, Butler finding form, getting that number, captaining really well in the last game. I think that's given him a big boost. The one like little piece of the jigsaw, and I don't think he's been bowling that badly, but he could do with a few wickets, is Adil Rashid. His last however many games, he's not quite got the wickets that we've seen in the past. So he'll want a couple of wickets. He should have had a wicket in the last game. I think it was Phillips that was dropped by Moeen Ali at cover. So he should have had that wicket. But I guess that's the only piece of England's jigsaw that you could just point a finger at and say Adil could do a little bit better. But I don't think he's bowling that badly. I just think it's T20 cricket at the minute. He's not quite getting the rub of the green.
I don't think they call it a dolly anymore. They call it an Ali at the moment. That would have been the easiest drop of the tournament. It was lobbed up to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think he just went to take it at the wrong place. But we won't harp on that. Your player to watch out for tomorrow.
See, I have a feeling that, Adil Rashid definitely, spin will play a factor. And I think Moeen Ali might just get to bowl a little bit more than he normally does. And he's obviously, if he comes into the bat, and especially if they're shuffling batting orders, he could have a lot to contribute. I think he's an absolutely brilliant cricketer. And I think these are the conditions in which he'll really thrive.
And one from Sri Lanka, Michael?
I just think Hasaranga, I just think he's such a good bowler. He's the key. If he can, what was it in the last game? 3 for 13. 4 overs going at 3.25. He's a brilliant bowler. And England, historically, they've got better and better at facing mystery spin. But historically, it's been the downfall of many, many sides. So if Hasaranga can have a number on the board, I think that'll be the key. Let's Sri Lanka bat first, get a number on the board, and then I think it'll be down to the leg spinner.
Yeah, fair enough. So we've got a nice battle of the leggies there. Rashid, who we want a little bit more from, Hasaranga, who we expect everything from. One name from that Sri Lanka 11 other than Manindo Hasaranga.
Look, I think really one of their most talented players is Asalanka. And it's a mystery to me why he hasn't got going. He gets going. He's a class bat. He's a really class bat. I'm looking forward to something from him.
Yeah, well, I think having looked ahead to what's coming up in Sydney, I think a final word on the host nation, the defending champions, just maybe a very brief post-mortem. Michael, on the assumption that England go on to beat Sri Lanka and we don't see Australia play any further part in this tournament, they will look back, but for the moment we can look back. What went wrong for the hosts and defending champions?
Well, I think when you're the host, you've got to come out of the traps and start well. You know the conditions. Every single game in the T20 World Cup is so important, particularly with net run rate. And that first performance against New Zealand, they were blown away. That opening burst of batting from Devon Conway and Finn Allen was destructive, and the bowling wasn't quite right. Australia had an off day, so they were behind the game in terms of the net run rate from game one. And then the Irish game, I thought they had a great chance of blowing Ireland away, bowling them out for 100. And those last few overs cost them plenty. And then the net run rate didn't really improve because of it. So those two occasions, the wash out against England, they can look back on that and say, on that wicket in Melbourne with a bit of bounce, bit of a green tinge, the likes of Hazelwood coming in start would have had a field day. And I think they may have done. But overall, it was that first game. You've got to start well. You've got to come out of the traps. And in home conditions, as the world champions, the T20 champions, they didn't react to that first game. So I think that's the game that they should look back and think we weren't quite ready for it.
I was sitting at the Melbourne State Library with Mike Hussey and Lisa Staliker, and we were watching this game before an event that we were about to go into. And we were in disbelief. We were like checking the score. 200, really? 200 against Australia at home?
No, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Let me leave aside for you, because Michael's spoken enough about it, that first defeat. Is this the kind of Australian side? The Australian side that we're used to would not have allowed Ireland to get so far. They wouldn't have allowed Afghanistan to get so far once they were 105 all for 5. When they were 98 for 2, I can still understand two batsmen who said going, you're trying to break them, you can't break through. Once they were 105 out for 5, at that point in time, the Australian teams that we're used to would have finished it off by 120, 125. They wouldn't have allowed the tail to wag as violently as it did today with Rashid Khan. And I think that is, for me, this Australian team's biggest weakness, the inability to finish off matches. And they've not been ruthless enough when they've had opportunities to finish it. And I think that's where their run rate has really suffered.
Last word from Michael Vaughan, or last name from Michael Vaughan I'd like to get. If you watched the earlier show and when we saw Aaron Finch not playing this particular game and knowing that Australia might just be out of this tournament, he did say that could be the last we see of him in Australia colours. Remember, he doesn't play ODI cricket anymore. So any other names, Michael, that come to mind from this tournament? Because World Cups often tend to be a stage when if your team hasn't got somewhere, or if you've got to a certain stage in your career, you might be just saying goodbye. Any other names in this tournament?
Mitchell Starc, maybe. Mitchell Starc might decide that, not playing a game like this tonight. I don't know. I'm only just thinking out the top of my head, but it's a great shame if Aaron Finch isn't going to go out with a farewell game, and not that it's a testimonial, but he's earned the right to say goodbye the right way. He'll be playing franchise leagues and we'll see him batting again. But if it is that we don't see Aaron Finch playing for Australia again, he's been an incredible servant. He's one of the really good men of the game. Plays it the right way. He's great around people. talked really positively about the game. I'm sure we'll see him in a commentary box. I've done a bit of commentary with him in the Big Bash, and I'm sure he'll be joining us in a few weeks' time. But I can't think of many other names off the top of my head, other than, just because it's in my thoughts at the minute. Mitchell Stark missing the game tonight. If Australia get knocked out, will he decide that this format of the game is the one format that he might just give it a little bit of a miss in terms of international cricket?
Well, maybe in a couple of years' time, when we're at another future edition of this tournament and we're sitting on Cricbuzz Live and pulling out another question from Joy, there will be some sort of trivia about what was significant about that particular match. Oh, that player never played again after that. But for now, it's all about brothers and uncles.
Brothers and uncles and fathers and, what have you, proper cricketing family. Played alongside my cousin in the Under-19 World Cup. My father and uncle have also represented the country. Who am I? And it's no surprise. He hasn't had a great tournament, but Doug Bracewell it is. And the Bracewells, so many Bracewells have played. It's not funny. I mean, it's just one of the most prolific names in the cricket.
Yeah, after Hadley, you think
Great
of the
question.
Bracewells, from Brendan Bracewell and Doug and Michael, and there's been a lot of them. So I wonder if anyone picked this up as early as you normally tend to do, because this was, I think, classified on the tougher side of Joy's questions. Who is our victor for today?
Oh, brilliant. It's a new name. I haven't seen that name before. Have you?
I haven't. Abhijit NS, well done. We always like to get new names in there, no matter how quickly you do it. Quizzing family gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But I'm sure it's going to be a tough one to answer. We hope it's going to be a tough one to answer. Try and complete the semi-final lineup for the ICC T20 World Cup 2022. It should be what we think it is. Sri Lanka can spoil the party. We'll be back to see if they do at the Sydney Cricket Ground, where the weather is going to hold. For now, time to say thank you to Michael Vaughan, to Joy Bhattacharya. We'll see you at just before the start of the Sri Lanka game against England.